Hello everyone, how's it going? It's Ben. Welcome aboard the Bonnie Rackham for another episode, another absolutely filled episode. We are now on to episode 6 of season 4, a big episode to go over. So yeah, without further ado, let's just get straight into this one and get a title sorted.
Get us underway.
Okay, yeah, so for the title, this one was a really tough one. I think I'm going to go sort of off the back of last episode being called Choices and call this one Live With It. Of course, yeah, this is what Billy says to Silver after Silver sort of tries to get him back on side in this episode, but it's a strong theme throughout the episode. The consequences of people's choices are really in their face this episode, in bringing forth the Spanish army. Woodes Rogers' brutal choice he has to live with by the episode's end. Silver, as I say, really struggling with his. Anne has much the same sentiment to Max. Eleanor, yeah, she won't get the chance to live with her choices, making that all the sadder. Yeah, I think this one's a pretty fitting title overall. So yeah, let's get a brief summary and a rating sorted.
First item.
So yeah, this one has my favourite combined creative team back together again since the season 2 finale. So yeah, we know we're in for a good episode for this one. So yeah, this is written by Jonathan E. Steinberg and Robert Levine, and it's directed by Steve Boyone. So yeah, thankfully this episode we are back to a full house with the main cast, everyone getting pretty equal fare in as well. But of course we are about to lose one big gun forever in this one. So yeah, the Spanish army are here, invited by Woodes Rogers last episode, and they are here for one thing and one thing only, and that's to destroy anything and everything in their path. Silver has chats with Billy and Julius after recent fallouts. A frustrated Max is offered no help to go and look for Eleanor, so she bravely sets out on her own, but on spotting Jack, she has to make a big decision, and it's frosty reunions all round for her. Flint takes Madi and Eleanor to Miranda's or the HQ for safety, but in the chaos of it all, they miss that Spaniard isn't dead, which brings a pointless but sharp, tragic close to Eleanor's story. With Madi assumed dead as well, Flint is the bearer of bad news to Silver. When all seems like it might be lost, Max is ready to play another hand, and Flint's war is not as over as he might have thought. Yeah, this is a brilliant episode. As I say, I do really love this creative team when they're all together, and this episode has a very finale kind of feel about it. Great pacing and direction on this one. It's got to be a high rating. I'm going to give this a very close to perfection 9.8 ranking. Not quite competing with those season finales and those penultimate episodes from the last 2 seasons, but really not far off at all for me. Okay, so yeah, let's just get into the character deep dive.
Next item.
So yeah, we're going to start with Max and a sort of Gen X reunion with Jack and Anne as well. And yeah, Flint will be the character that appears in sort of multiple sections, as we'll do him, Madi and Eleanor as well. Woodes Rogers can kind of open and close this section. And then finally Silver and his chats with Billy, Julius, and the great scene near the end with Flint. So yeah, let's start with my favourite trio, and yeah, boy is it really good to see these guys again. While episode 5 is still a really great episode, don't get me wrong, happily waffled away for an hour about it, but with no Anne, minimal Jack, and absolute blink and miss her at the, end Max, I really do struggle with that episode, sort of enjoyment-wise. Yeah, and I really miss these guys' involvement. So yeah, Max is pretty much the main takeaway from these guys this episode. Some Jack stuff to deepen a little bit, but it is a brilliant one for Max. Yeah, she has been quietly kind of over it the last couple of episodes, as we've sort of seen and discussed, but she's not so quiet anymore in this one. So yeah, we first see Max talking to Woodes Rogers' council inside the fort. Sort of chaos is kind of looming. One guy wants to fight, one guy wants to surrender. I love they're kind of all going at it, bickering among themselves, but on knowing some big shit is about to go down, Max just sort of orders quiet. He does add a please a few seconds later. So yeah, Captain Handsome comes and he informs them all the Spanish ship they've been sort of watching gave Governor Rogers signal for them all to stand down. And Max knows immediately what this means. And she's listening intently to what they're saying. Obviously, she doesn't really have the authority here. And when the captain sort of asks, could his codes, have been stolen, Captain Handsome, or should I say Lieutenant Handsome, making up his name and rank completely, but never mind. And yeah, he makes it clear that it's definitely him. And yeah, so the captains agree to obey, but Max asks about Eleanor. She's out there, she's not here, she's out there. And the council and the lieutenant basically says there's no time to retrieve her. It will be suicide for anyone to attempt it, he says. The MVP nomination shout is a lot louder with Max's last scene this episode, but I'm bringing that firework in early for this moment. This, well, fuck you all then, sort of look. I'll go on my own if I have to, you know, that she's doing here. So yeah, this council are all for obeying the governor, but will make absolutely no attempt, it seems, to save his wife. So yeah, next we cut to Max on a horse, on her own, a long way from the fort. You can just about see it in the distance. She's on her own, knowing the incoming danger, but she's looking for Eleanor. And yeah, great shot of her looking back as the cannon fire from the Spanish fleet begins. This really is all she's built for herself, coming down right in front of her eyes, literally right now. So yeah, no wonder she gets a little bit mad about it all, a little bit salty. I really do feel her frustrations this episode. She's called out all of this, you know, for a long time now, all this season, to deaf ears. And yeah, it's a great shot here of the island, of the coast, really looks great. But yeah, it's not Eleanor she finds though. Who should she see freshly landed and unaware of the oncoming attack? It's Jack. Talk about a stressful day for Jack as well, or a stressful few days, because this isn't his first frosty reunion of the morning. He's already had a brief interaction with Eleanor at this point and Flint. A scene I want to come back to for the Eleanor and Madi discussions mostly. But yeah, what a moment for Jack. The anger he sort of had in those first 2 episodes for Eleanor, standing face to face with her here. They briefly chat about the deal. Eleanor's upset the money's not here as it should be. And as we'll find out, it's yet to make it off Maroon Island anyway. But Jack's still not happy about said deal as he makes it known to Eleanor and Flint. And he says, you know, sort of half-heartedly, it seems the only option for me is to kill one or both of you. And it's a little bit tense for a moment, but you know Jack's probably not going to do that. But yeah, Flint is led off by Eleanor's redcoats, and after an eye roll at Jack, she follows. So yeah, Jack's already pissed off, and who should be now approaching him? It's of course Max. So yeah, great scene alert. Max spots Jack in the distance, and she gets off her horse, and she nervously approaches. I love Jack's reaction on seeing her. What is going on in his face in this moment? So much history between these two. He does, you know, he does his little eyebrow thing, doesn't he? Does he do a little moustache? I can't remember, but he does his little kind of, we got Flint twitches, Silver does a twitch, and we got Jack's little kind of, that he does. I think there's a bit more than Anne in both their motivations here, whether they'd admit it or not. There's something in there between them, you know, a small part away from the tolerance, anger and frustrations. I've never been able to put my finger on exactly what it is. Respect isn't the right word. It's not in this moment anyway, but that might be what it gets to. But anyway, you know, whatever it is, Max has no time for pleasantries or apologies, and she asks after Eleanor. But of course, Jack is not going to let her get away with that one, as she rightly deserves a hard time for. But obviously Jack is unaware of the immediate threat of the Spanish. Which brings me back to the Jack and Max question. Is Max also looking out for Jack and Anne here in approaching? She can see Eleanor isn't there. Knows she's unlikely to get anything useful from Jack other than a bollocking. Yeah, she knows it's going to be frosty, but is she giving him the heads up, as she's generally concerned for his and Anne's safety in not knowing what's coming? So yeah, first Jack sort of reads her a bit, you know, for not coming in with the apology. Very classic kind of Jack dialogue and swagger, and, you know, much needed humour after a trifecta of really kind of intense episodes. And considering how tragic this one's about to go, yeah, it's a, you know, little bit of needed comedy from Jack here. But yeah, Max, after he's had his little say, Max informs him, Spain's here, you know, pretty much. We don't have time for this. And yeah, Max is all business. She gives him the tea on all the chaos that's about to ensue. And Jack knows, you know, when she gets to it, it's Woods Rogers that invited them in. And Max sort of asks, how did you know that? And yeah, Max, you have a lot of catching up to do. And still, at this point, no updates on Anne. No one said anything. This was brutal first watch. So yeah, a crew member informs Jack that he's seen sails. That's obviously confirming Max's news as honest and true. And Jack gets to ordering everyone back to the sloop. Change of plan, back to the ship. Spanish invasion, you're welcome to stay if you like. My captain. So yeah, we've just seen Max possibly looking out for Jack here. Now he's about to do the same. You know, Max sort of looks around a bit nervously as they're all getting ready to make haste back into the water. And she's, yeah, clearly scared, unsure what her next move should be. And Jack stops, looks back at her a second, has a little think. Are you coming? I won't ask again. After everything, you know, after such a betrayal, he knows that if she doesn't leave with them, she's likely to face something awful. And yeah, is Anne part of his reasoning for asking her here as well? Or is this just Jack being a good guy and that whatever it is, small as it is right now, just not being able to leave her behind to that awful fate? And yeah, Max has a little moment of hesitation. She knows this is the logical thing to do to get off this island. That's a big island, and if she stays, regardless on if she finds Eleanor or not, they both might not make it back anyway. And yeah, running away though is not something Max does. You know, she doesn't like to admit defeat, and it will be a switch of alliance again for her. I think she knows she's in for a tough emotional reunion with Anne as well. Yeah, I think there's a lot going through her mind in those few seconds when she's deciding, but she makes the decision and she follows Jack towards the skiffs. So yeah, now on the sloop, Jack and the Revenge crew commandeered after their fight for freedom. That's anchored alongside the Walrus, which right now it seems that Featherstone is captaining. And yeah, there was a little scene with him and Adele back when the chaos kind of came down on Nassau. And they got their people together and they made a hasty retreat. And he wants to leave, Featherstone wants to leave while they can. But Jack vetoes that option. He wants to wait for whoever, if anyone, survives the day. Yeah, good man Jack again. You know, actually, let's give Jack a bit more props than that. Let's give him a firework MVP nomination for Jack, for looking out for people, for being reasonable with Eleanor and Max, despite having very valid reason not to be, and yeah, for making a good choice a little bit later, which obviously we'll get into. Once Featherstone goes off to do his thing and they're alone, Max approaches Jack. She says, if there's nothing to be done, I would like to see her. Oh, are we finally mentioning Anne Bonny? Are we finally mentioning that she's okay an episode and a half later after she got the beating of her life? Thank you, creators, for that kindness. Yeah, that was great fun for us Anne stans to sort of sit and panic about for an hour and a half. I love Jack's look here too. You know, he knew this was coming. In inviting her, he knows it's inevitable. And he knows it's Anne's choice at the end of the day as well. You know, oh look, a man giving a woman he loves agency. Take notes, was Roger. Silver, you might want to jot a couple of things down as well for what's to come. But yeah, I wonder if he did give Anne a heads up prior that Max is on board. I don't know. We'll never know. But yeah, let's get into that great scene. So yeah, it looks like we're sort of quite deep below deck, and Anne is in a hammock. Obviously, yeah, she is in some really deep recovery. Yeah, God, yeah, what a reunion. Another great, but understandably frosty and uncomfortable reunion, though. All that's passed since Max went out to meet her and lie, you know, that Jack's being hurt. So much has happened. But Max, she's not coming in with any bullshit. She's not coming out with any words and apologies she doesn't have. I both admire this, but also she might come in a little bit strong, a little bit expectant that she's going to get something. But she knows Anne, and Anne knows her very well as well now. So, as she says, if she does come in with some bullshit, some apology she doesn't mean, Anne will know. But I don't know, you know, maybe start with sort of showing a little bit concern for your ex's condition. That might have been a good start. But, yeah, so we see Anne's hands are really heavily bandaged. All we can really sort of see of her at this point. And, yeah, Max begins, I loved you. Again, yeah, this is all kind of real, from the heart, and I betrayed you. You know, tears in her eyes as she says she cannot apologise for it. She did what anyone would have done when confronted with the same impossible choices. I wouldn't have betrayed Anne Bonny myself, but, you know, I get what she means. I get what she means. We know her reasons for wanting a home and stability. It wasn't just ambition over loyalty for Max. There was actually a lot more. It was a bit more deeper than that. He continues, if I apologise, you will know it is a lie, and I do not wish to lie to you ever again. Break my damn heart, Max. Break my damn heart. Of course, yeah, this is all well and good. And we know she's almost learned her lessons on that kind of front. But Anne, who's just been through hell and back, might not want to hear this shit right now. She might just not want to hear this shit right now. It pretty much is a lose-lose situation for Max here. There was never going to be an easy first time reconnecting with Anne. Yeah, so she's gone with a kind of a heartfelt truth. But Anne just says, leave. You know, and you can just tell that really physically hurt her to talk. Like, just the way she says it. And yeah, Max tries her luck further, and I get it. She wants it resolved here and now because it's a tension hanging. But Max, with all due respect, understand Anne's wishes in this moment. She does by next episode, but right now, she's having to make Anne kind of turn around. And yeah, she sees for the first time just how hurt Anne is. Obviously, so do we. Yeah, it's really tough to see those cuts and bruises. And yeah, she looks just, beaten to hell, like she's been through hell and back. Get the fuck out, Anne says through gritted teeth. And Max sort of finally sees how badly, she's hurt. And she gets that, it's probably not the right time right now sort of memo. She nods, and without looking back, she heads to leave. Though she does pause at the door, as if she wants to say something else. But she respects Anne's wish, and she leaves. It's a short scene, and there's nothing much to deepen from Anne's side. Understandable reaction. Not in the mood to do this right now. I don't know your guilty conscience and unpouring of your reasons right now, Max. Look at the fucking state of me. That sort of thing, really. But yeah, it's great to see her again, even really shortly, despite her condition. Just to know she's all right. Yeah, the self-control. Not to mention her at all last episode. I just thought it would be really funny. Congratulations if you worked it out. I just thought it'd be really funny and an interesting side challenge since she wasn't in the episode. Yeah, anyway. So yeah, next time we come back to these guys, Featherstone is talking to Jack on the sloop. He really now wants to get going with the walrus. A lot's been going on Nassau. He fears the longer they hang around, the more chance they are sighted. And they both look to Max, who is sort of on her own, looking out to sea. A lot for her to think about after her, reunion with Anne. And Jack says, give it another hour and then we'll set sail. Featherstone goes to have a little chat with Max. He starts it up with, seems a fair amount of resentment towards you these days. That's his opener. But I give him props in this little moment. He doesn't have to go and comfort her, and he's clearly not comfortable doing this sort of thing, and he's not great at it. But he's going out his way, and he's giving Max her dues for standing up to Barringer, for not giving his and Adele's names, not grassing them up. And he sort of says, Jack can be angry, Anne can be angry, but I remember the good you've done too. Yeah, it's a nice effort by Featherstone to try and make her feel a little bit better. But Max is having a moment right now. She's really reflecting. She says it wasn't supposed to end like this. How could we all have sacrificed so much and none of us has anything to show for it? Yeah, she's really deepening her own choices in terms of sort of Anne, mostly here, I think. In seeing her, I think it's brought a lot of stuff back. And, she's feeling bad. And yeah, maybe a reason she did go in a bit heavy right now. To try and shove down this emotional stuff she knew would maybe come back up. And, she's even shedding a tear here, which is really rare from Max. Nassau burning is seemingly the end of it all for her. But of course, this is Max, the smartest person in most rooms, if you ask me, most of the time. And yeah, she won't stay down feeling sorry for herself long. So yeah, at this point, Flint and co are spotted in the distance. Obviously, we've got all their stuff to discuss. And Jack remarks, looks like that they've been through hell. And he says it will take some time till we know all that we've lost today. And so updates have now been given by Flint. And yeah, the guys have been chatting and Max watches from sort of outside the room. I told you, Max won't stay down beaten for long. I love this woman. I love her. This is one of my favourite Max scenes, I think. It might be scene of the episode. I'll decide when I do it all. But yeah, amazing acting from Jessica Parker Kennedy this whole episode. But especially this scene. So yeah, Featherstone comes out and he updates her. They're to follow Flint to the island, regroup and kind of go from there. And Max is immediately not happy. And I love that Featherstone kind of knows she's not impressed. But yeah, he's got no words of comfort this time. But yeah, Flint gives her a look before heading up on deck, and Jack approaches her. And yeah, in her short time on board, Max has obviously learned exactly what they've all kind of been up to in the time she's not been with them. You know, she's always had a basic knowledge, but I think, yeah, just being here a few hours, she's filled in a lot of the blanks. And yet she is at Jack immediately. A war against civilization. Civilization has been winning that war for 10,000 years against men who are richer, braver, stronger and smarter than you. She's got a point. You know, Jack doesn't really want to hear this right now though, but Max continues. You got a bigger force, stronger, you know, than anyone could have hoped for. You hit the governor at his weakest, but at what result? Eleanor is dead, and is nearly dead, and the governor is sitting in my fucking chair in Nassau victorious. Yeah, she's so mad. She's so mad. Has Max sworn before? She has, I'm sure, but it's rare. It's really rare. And yeah, she's learned what they've been doing and how they've been fucking it up, basically. You know, how it's all just been going on and on, never getting anywhere. And she's reading the whole coalition operation to filth a little bit. Yeah, and she continues, you cannot fight civilization from the outside in. And your plan now is to follow that man into more of the same. Now, yeah, this is all a lot of truth from Max, but she's just basically insulted everyone, including Jack himself. So yeah, he's due his retort. And boy, does he. He yells, that result is because of your goddamn betrayal. Doesn't quite just stem down to that moment. Woodes Rogers was always going to hand Jack over to the Spanish in the end after Mrs. Hudson's reveal. But it's very valid anger for Jack, and as far as he knows, it is the main point. And he says to her, you know, Flint and some others have just argued, you know, whether they should throw her in the sea rather than, you know, give her another opportunity to fuck us. And he says, for reasons I can't begin to fathom, I argued against it. Bark at me again about braver, stronger and smarter men, and I may decide to revisit the issue. Damn, angriest we've seen Jack. Immediate anger, kind of like that at least. But yeah, let's not forget, you know, Anne was sort of saying similar stuff to what Max was saying in the terms of she wanted them out of it. She really wasn't for it. She didn't go into any kind of specifics like Max, and she didn't kind of say it was all shit or anything, but she knew it was a losing battle ultimately, and she was making that kind of quite clear, I think. So I wonder if Jack, he's also feeling a little bit bad about all that's happened since as well, you know, in terms of Teach and Anne, and he's really kind of taking it out on Max, who is a bit of an unwanted face of truth for him in this moment. You know, Max is really the last person he wants saying to him, you know, right, so here's all the mistakes you've made in the last year. So yeah, a normal person might take that outburst from Jack, you know, and take that as an overstep and try again when he's calmer. Notice she did with Anne, because that's different. It's personal feelings with Anne. But here, this is their futures, her future. This is business, this argument with Jack. You know, she has vital information. She can help. So Max still equally is stirred up. She bounces back. You know, if killing me seems like the smartest thing to do, then it is obvious to me none of you have any idea how to defeat Woodes Rogers. And you do, Jack asks. You're goddamn right I do. You know, Max snaps back. Oh, Max, I love her, I love her. And again, though, props to Jack for vouching for her in that room, because she's doing exactly what Flint would have feared. Probably, I think he was probably the one that argued not to have her about. And Max continues, you know, a bit softer now. Eleanor is dead and is nearly dead, and I want him to pay for it all dearly. Yeah, not a good time if you're Max's ex right now, this episode. Not a good time. And she asks Jack, do you want to help me or not? In other words, I'm doing this, with or without your help. And of course, Jack's pissed with her, understandably, but Jack knows she's talking sense. And when the mist clears a bit, as it sort of has here, he knows it was always about getting back at Woodes Rogers and sort of Eleanor, more than it was for him about caring for this war. Even before Woodes Rogers showed his true face to him, it was more about that. So yeah, she says, when Flint heads south, we head north to Eleanor's grandfather. Which, of course, yeah, is to lead to some great stuff to come in the next couple of episodes. But yeah, otherwise, I think that's it for these guys. Great to see them again. A really strong Max episode. But yeah, okay, let's refill our cups and get ready to talk about Eleanor and close her ultimately kind of sad Black Sails chapter. And of course, Madi, Flint and Woodes Rogers will also be involved sort of briefly in the discussions. So yeah, let's start this section with Woodes Rogers and briefly fill in what he's up to. So yeah, he's with, I'm guessing it's a Spanish captain. I'm not sure of don't even know the word. Rolls? I can't remember the word. But anyway, he's with the Spanish, I'm going to say captain. And yeah, he spots the walrus through the glass. And Woodes Rogers asks if they're going to be pursuing. But this guy says no, he's not separating his fleet. You can clean up whatever's left once we leave. Is that a look of doubt there, Woodes Rogers? Is that a look of doubt, mate? You know, are they using you instead of you using them? Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? So yeah, the cannon fire starts coming in, and we get some great shots from both land and sea. And yeah, you know, the poor people of Nassau panicking in cannon fire and destruction, and this impressive but terrifying fleet firing upon innocent people. So yeah, next time we see him, he's now on the island, and he's watching the devastation he set forth. You know, fires burning, a woman being dragged from her home by two men, clearly about to be assaulted. You know, are you proud of yourself? Do you care? I don't know. Looks like he might have the humming of a conscience for a moment, but after kind of taking it in, he gets right to, you know, informing the Spanish captain where the pirates are most likely to be, which of course is the HQ, i.e. right where Flint is heading at this point with his wife. And Captain Handsome comes into view, and the other captains, or the council, you know, and Woodes Rogers realises very quickly, with no sight of Eleanor, she's not in the fort. And he says, you let her leave? You know, he asks the captain before kind of punching him. Yes, your wife's free will is his fault, isn't it? And yeah, he goes back to the Spanish captain, you know, your men need to know my wife's not to be harmed. And yeah, as the captain points out, if that order was even given, they wouldn't heed it. What has begun here, there's no altering it. Yeah, you are not the one in control of this situation, Woodes Rogers. You know, you're just not. This is war, and you've given what should be your enemy free rein with no repercussions. And yeah, they're taking you for a mug right now, pretty much. And yeah, suddenly there's some emotion on his face. And while I feel it all for Eleanor, this prick gets none of my sympathy. I'm sorry. I actually really don't want to deepen him much this episode because he gets me too rolled up. He got a lot of time last episode, and I can go into how her death haunts him next episode and where we sort of go from there with him. But he won't be sharing much of Eleanor's time this episode, I'm afraid. This is for Eleanor, this episode. Yeah, so on to, he has one last scene we'll discuss at the end of this section. So Eleanor, Madi and Flint are on the beach where we left them sort of end of last episode, and we see Jack and Flint's conversation, but this time we are with Madi and Eleanor kind of watching on. And yeah, these two, they really go through a journey this episode. Their differences kind of evident to start, but by the tragic end, it seems we were getting on a path to something, to understanding their similarities and how being separated as kids altered both their lives. But yeah, in this scene, it's a way to go until that point for sure. Eleanor asks her if she trusts Flint, and Madi retorts kind of, what does it matter to you? And yeah, it's a bit frosty between them both, it's safe to say. Shields are up for both of them right now. And yeah, Eleanor points out that Mr. Scott, Madi's father, distrusted Flint in the beginning. And yeah, she's surprised Mr. Scott's feelings didn't influence Madi. But we know that they never really talk like that. And you can sort of see on Madi's face, she had no idea, I don't think, about that kind of little sort of thing. And yeah, Eleanor, she's doing that thing where she kind of has her guard up. You know, she's in danger of being vulnerable emotionally, which she struggled with all along. And yeah, Madi continues, you were my sister. There is very little I remember from when I was young. You know, yeah, it's another sort of hit for Eleanor here. I talked about the men in her life last episode, her husband, you know, the lack of a mother figure the episode before. Here's something so overlooked. She lost a sister too when she was young. Only recently found out it was all a lie and she's been alive the whole time. And Madi says she revered Eleanor. She was older, beautiful. You're beautiful too, Madi. You're beautiful too. And Madi says when Eleanor was told she and her mother was dead, she had to believe it affected her. And yeah, Eleanor, she's not giving away anything right now to Madi. You know, both these tough women keeping their cards really close to their chest here. but we do see Eleanor kind of take a pause. Again, in recently learning that Madi's been alive this whole time, it's probably bringing back a lot of grief she would have felt as a young girl. You know, at the same time, she lost her own mother as well. But Madi pokes a bit. All that time, her father was with Eleanor. She says it would have been so easy to lessen your suffering by divulging the secret, and yet he never did. Why? Damn, Madi, you know, that's cold. But of course, Eleanor had a whole revelation, understanding of kind of her and Mr. Scott's dynamic last episode. So yeah, it comes across a little bit nasty from Madi here. But of course, she's heard a lot of things a lot of bad things in the time since they knew each other. And by all intents and purposes, they have ended up on opposing sides right now, it would seem. It's Madi and she's smart. And obviously, as discussed, after spending some time, she learns it's all a bit more complicated than that with Eleanor. And Madi caps it off by saying, my father didn't distrust Flint. He distrusted all of you. Yeah, again, another barb for Eleanor, another kind of putting her in with a group that, though she is, right now she doesn't want to be. And yeah, they looked at each other for the first time a moment, but Eleanor doesn't answer her, and she heads towards Flint and Jack, and they have their little exchange as discussed from Jack's perspective. Eleanor, of course, will have that front, up with Jack. Let's not forget, she still has no idea about Teach, about Woods Rogers' behaviour with all that. She just sees a man who she knows was friends with Vane and will have nothing but contempt with her. So yeah, she's given him no reason to kind of change his mind on that opinion in this kind of moment. So yeah, next time we see them, Eleanor is walking ahead with Flint, who is still cuffed, and Madi is keeping an eye out on them from a distance. She's still kind of wary. And while he's still her hostage, he's still chained, is friendly with Flint. Eleanor talks about the choice of Flint, being the hostage. Is he not concerned, sort of thing? And Flint sort of says, once upon a time, you shared those concerns, for me, sort of thing, back when she saw what he did. The benefits of having a free British rule, to make the new world something more than just an extension of the old. And he says, is it so unthinkable it might be again? You were a pirate once. He points out, which gets him a look from Eleanor. Girl, stop playing. He's talking sense and speaking the truth. And you can see that kind of recognition of passion that was once there for her, like, it still is for him. But at this point, their conversation is cut short as a big group of the Spanish army are spotted in the distance. And yeah, Eleanor is clearly frightened. She will recognise those uniforms, a lot of memories of those Spanish colours, I imagine, a lot of kind of PTSD. And yeah, Flint points out they need to get into hiding quickly. He doesn't answer when Eleanor says where, but I imagine most people's first guess was Miranda's, i.e. the new HQ. So yeah, at Miranda's now, and yeah, Eleanor is confused. Spain's been quiet for months, why now? And yeah, Flint and Madi exchange a look. They know why. Flint sort of spells it out. Your husband's a dirty turncoat, basically. He left days ago, and here we are. But Eleanor, she's swimming in Egypt once more because she is completely in denial. Yeah, she's, as we saw a glimpse of last episode, and I spoke about in that great scene with Flint, she knows Woods Rogers deep down. She knows Woods Rogers is another goddamn man that's been using her, but she doesn't want to believe he's capable of bringing forth this sort of horror. She just doesn't want any of it right now. So Flint drops it, he brushes it off a bit. He knows there's bigger issues to deal with right now than trying to convince Eleanor that her husband's a wrong'un. But yeah, this is Flint, he's a tactical man. He's thinking time and tactics and what to do next. And yeah, he says they should send out scouts to determine the size of the force. But yeah, he points out at this point he's still cuffed when they need all the hands they can muster. And Eleanor, she hesitates a little too long for my liking here, but I'll give her a pass, considering. But yeah, I love Flint's wink to the red, when he kind of takes the cuffs off him. And yeah, there's a whistle from the lookout and some Spanish are here already. So yeah, Flint asks Eleanor and Madi to retreat to the house, and he joins the two reds by the kind of peepholes in the big gate. And yeah, I love that Flint, he takes control immediately, and these guys, they just fall completely in line. There's just something about this man that just makes people follow him, that makes people follow his orders. So yeah, the Red's about to shoot as one guy comes into their vision, but Flint signals to hold fire. he knows there's more. And yeah, 8 men approach. And yeah, they have about the same numbers, maybe a little less. And yeah, Flint orders the fire, and we have a bit of a showdown. They deal with it swiftly enough, but 3 more Spanish men approach from kind of behind the corn afterwards. And yeah, they obviously go to leg it to alert the troops. And Flint knows if they succeed, they'll face at least 50 more men. So yeah, he and 4 other men go to deal with the issue. So yeah, that of course leaving Eleanor and Madi alone with just one guy, one red guarding the door, and one of Madi's guys on the inside. And yeah, Madi, she's just having a read during all this mayhem. Fair play, you know, she's keeping calm. But Eleanor, understandably, a little bit more restless. But yeah, Madi reading, it might be an awkward silence sort of thing. You know, and like Miranda and Flint, she does love her books. So perhaps one of Miranda's and Flint's was still about, and she's having a look. And yeah, Eleanor breaks the sort of uncomfortable silence by saying it did affect me. You know, when Mr. Scott told her that Madi and her mother had died, it affected her a great deal. And yeah, with a look from Madi, her guy leaves them alone to talk. A little bit of casualness, you know, in quite a clearly dangerous situation here from Madi, from what I'd expect up to now from Madi. But the audience need this moment of them alone. I get it. So Eleanor points out, you know, it must have been hard to be away for so long. And Madi says it was hard to be away from him. So yeah, they're getting to Mr. Scott. You know, their lives went in very different ways. But he was always their kind of father and father figure in common, but neither really had the relationship they thought, or in Madi's case, wanted in the end. And yeah, Madi had truth and knowledge, but hardly had him around, and Eleanor had him around, but unknown to her, you know, leading this sort of double life with her. And yeah, Eleanor confesses to Madi she found herself thinking about walking away from Nassau, and yeah, she asks about her and her mother. One can be happy, can't they? A life of isolation and uncertainty, as long as it is lived with someone you love and who loves you back. Oh, that's... oh, that poor Eleanor. Yeah, she turns around to Madi asking, it's possible, isn't it? Oh, Eleanor, you know, I don't know if it ever was for you. I really don't. As I said last episode, I wish it could have been for her. And yeah, obviously here she's thinking her and her unborn child in this question. And Madi agrees, you know, says it is possible. And yet things soften between them as Eleanor sits. They were focusing on their differences to start, who they've become in their time apart. Obviously understandable on seemingly completely different conflicting sides. But with this question from Eleanor, Madi, I think, sensing and seeing the loneliness we saw when we first met Madi. You know, she was twiddling her thumbs a bit, wanting to make a difference, surrounded by people, you know, and love, but seeing something they weren't able to or didn't think possible. You know, they're both kind of queens of their own places, weren't they, for a while? So they've both got that in common as well. But, you know, that aside for Madi, she has her mother, she has that bond, that great relationship. A relationship she's understanding here, Eleanor never had. Just her, I think, seeing here, like myself and any fellow Eleanor appreciators and part-time kind of apologists. While this softening is nice and it makes for really interesting what-if kind of discussions and what would have been next, we cut to outside and we see the red coat out there having a bit of a scout, and the camera just pans down to the ground and a seemingly very dead Spaniard, but we see he twitches his finger a little bit. Okay, let's get this scene over with. So yeah, Madi, she's trying to light a fire with some Flint. Smart creators, caught that one. And yeah, Eleanor, she helps her out. And yeah, they smile to each other, you know, a really nice little moment. What might have been, you know, they might have been sisters again in some way. And we get a long shot of Eleanor kind of walking back into the kitchen, and just this haunting visual of the same Spanish soldier that was seemingly dead, very much now alive in the background. And yeah, Eleanor's peripherals doing absolutely nothing for her in this moment. She's not seeing anything. Once she looks out the window though, she realises their men are down, but it's too late, because as soon as she turns, he's right there in her face. And yeah, Eleanor, she gets a bit of a beating to start, a real beating, you know, regardless if she'd survived or not, she would have lost the baby here in this moment, I think. And yeah, Madi grabs a tire iron and she tries to help and has her little struggle. And she's whacked with the same tire iron. he turns it around on her, and that is Madi now out cold for the remainder of the scene. It's down to Eleanor. And yeah, Eleanor, she makes a run for the pistol on the table, and she fires a shot. Pirate Eleanor fighting till the end. She's not pleading, she's not begging for her life, crying. You know, she's standing strong as she can, using every trick that she can. You know, it's desperate, but a really valiant scramble till the end. Unfortunately, though, you know, this shot she fires, it just clips his arm. And yeah, his next move, as I spoke about in worrying the same fate for Anne in her fight scene, and grateful they didn't take it there. But here, in the bloodlust of war, if this situation wasn't awful enough, disregard a final humiliation on the enemy before you kill them. And yeah, it's bloody hard, you know, it's bloody tough to watch, while Eleanor is scrambling for anything to use to fight it off. And she finds an oil kind of lamp jar, I'm not sure what it is. It's filled with oil or something like that. And she smashes it over his head, and she grabs a sword. She's still fighting, she's still trying, you know, not just for her, for Madi. But in grabbing his own sword now, Eleanor takes a slice that unfortunately I believe is ultimately the one that seals it, whether Flint charges in right now in this moment or not. The agony, the pain she must be in. But yeah, she is still going, she is still fighting, practically crawling to the fire, you know, that they not moments ago lit. After she threw that oil at him, you know, she has the smarts in this panic, and she grabs a log and she whacks him, and of course he goes up like a Christmas tree because of the oil. But yeah, Eleanor, she's desperately trying to rouse Madi. She can barely move, she can't stand. But yeah, Madi, she's just out. She's out cold, seemingly dead. And yeah, and so Flint returns, and this scene as well just kills me every time. So yeah, before I say a final goodbye to Eleanor, this is a huge moment to Flint as well, because Miranda's house, you know, at times, seemingly a character of its own, a house full of mystery to us in the beginning, you know, such secrets, such love, such loss, abandoned, disregarded after Miranda's death, repurposed by Billy and turned into a busy HQ, and now just burning to the ground in front of his eyes. Just that shot of him, you know, at the end of the scene with him just standing, watching it burn. It's really haunting and sad, probably shot of the episode for me. But of course, a house is just a house at the end of the day, and as much emotion, you know, Flint must be feeling, his focus is on Eleanor in this moment. She's made it outside, still she found some strength. Flint approaches and realises, you know, that they done fucked up. And yet Eleanor is clearly here taking her final dying breaths. But she needs to know before she dies, was it him? Did he bring them my husband? And even at the end, you know, Eleanor thinking, have I been played again? Is that niggle I've had recently justified? And yeah, Flint looks to her, pauses a moment and lies and says no, he isn't. And yeah, what a beautiful moment of humanity that I don't think any other character still alive gives her, at least not convincingly. Eleanor says she tried to save Madi, which of course is just another, oh, kind of shit moment for Flint here. Silver's reaction, already an evident big concern on his face. We'll obviously come back to that in the relevant scene. But at this point, Eleanor closes her eyes and takes her last breath, and she dies in Flint's arms. Eleanor, yeah, like I say, of course she went out fighting. Of course it's an MVP nomination. I'm actually going to close the Eleanor chapter with a question that was put on the Black Cells fan page on Facebook a few weeks ago, with an answer and some of what the OP, Eleanor Parker, wrote in the final summary of Eleanor, which, by the way, great name, very similar as well. So yeah, what did Eleanor's ending leave you with? I put, with Woods Rogers out the way, I really find myself liking and defending her a bit. Again, as I have explained, you know, in these deep dives, I have found myself a bit of an Eleanor defender in recent watches since my initial first reaction when I didn't necessarily get her and I didn't take it all in. I think the extreme hate she gets sometimes is unjust when matched with the love and support Flint gets for similar snap choices. So by her awful death, I can't help but shed a tear for what could have been and for what was maybe inevitable from the beginning. She's probably one of, if not the most complex Black Cells character that, you know, as I spoke about last episode, you really do have to keep reminding yourself what a tough upbringing she had. So yeah, it's no wonder she rebelled and put up this front and acts rashly, hyper-independent, seemingly always with this, no, I'll do it my way, sort of attitude that we know she has, when sometimes she could really do with a bit of help, but she's never known if that help was genuine or came with a puppet string attached. By her death, this episode's end, it's frustrating, tragic and pointless death, kind of by an unimportant man in the bloodlust of war, a man that is invited over by her husband, a man that doesn't know, despite the lies she told him and herself in recent times, he doesn't know she could never sit and watch Nassau burn. Because deep down, Eleanor Guthrie, and I'm calling her Eleanor Guthrie, is a fighter. No, we may not have always understood what her motives to fight were. We may have actively disliked her methods, her choices haphazard sometimes. For a while, her death's been inevitable, but when it comes about, it's still tragic all the same. I'll now quote what the OP, Eleanor Parker, who asked the question, wrote in response to my abridged answer I just gave. I think it's a great final sum up for Eleanor. She says, I think she could have hardly been a character with a happy ending. Just like Icarus, she always had flown too close to the sun not to get burnt by it. Always too thirsty for the freedom that shining out that same light could grant her. But the fascinating thing is, she never cared about her wax wings. She was always conscious about them. She always knew and feared all her weakness, but she forcefully shoved them down and denied them even to herself in order not to be stopped by them from trying to gain what she so desperately searched for. And I think that's what's so great about her. Some of her choices I agree with, some others I do not, but I can't help but respect the way she always fought her way up from the darkness at the pit of the well all by herself, with her nails and teeth, in a world where everyone, or most of them at least, had always been against her. Yeah, that's a great little final sum up for Eleanor. And like her or not, let's all raise a glass to Eleanor Guthrie. So we're nearly done. So yeah, I'm not deepening this next scene much. Again, Woods Rogers, he can fuck off right now. Sorry. He reaches the homestead, now obviously burnt to the ground, and yet a very dead Eleanor, in the same place that Flint left her. And he slowly approaches, holding her, crying, nope, I've still got nothing but contempt for this monster. And this emotional score, it is not swaying me into feeling anything other, than, well, if that isn't the consequences of your own damn actions, man. Just pointless, reckless, deadly actions that achieve nothing. The people you really wanted to suffer got away, and your wife is dead. You got innocent people brutally culled and murdered. It's people that, while they were reluctant, they were still complying with your rule to an extent. Yeah, as I can say, I'm going to chat more about him in the aftermath. I'm not completely giving up on deep diving Woods Rogers, but he shan't be taking up any more of time today on my watch. That was always going to be a big section, that one. But let's move on finally to Silver now and what's going on with him this episode. So by extension, Billy, Julius, and then Flint again, obviously, and a little catch up with the Maroons. So we open this episode with the sound of chains being unlocked, which is obviously always nice. And we see the people formerly from the Underhill plantation are being freed. And Silver has come to make it right, he explains to Ruth. And she says, if you had suffered such loss, is there anything you can imagine to make it right? And Silver says no, but by offering up the man who sort of started it all, it might be a start. And so enter Billy, being dragged in by hands. And Silver says he's likely the one who chained them all, in case they offered resistance. And Ruth, she seems happy, she seems satisfied with his compromise. But she asks under what conditions. And Silver knows she has influence, so he asks in help in mending the alliance. He asks about the rogue former slaves, Julius's crew. He wants to know if she can calm them down a little bit, get them to agree to talk. And his second condition is that Billy is alive at the end of whatever punishment they put him through. And Ruth agrees. So Billy, likely scared for, the beating he's about to face. Remember, he was tortured before. He does try his luck in trying to escape, but he knocks him right down. No chance. So still at this point, unaware of what's been going on elsewhere on Nassau, Silver goes to visit Billy after some retribution has been handed out. And yeah, and this is a weary Silver, you know, he sort of shows his hand to Billy a little bit here. He admits, you know, he did not want this. Flint is his friend, but he knows what he is. He has no illusions. The one thing Flint has never done is force him to choose between himself and Billy. And Silver says it's not too late to remedy all this. He sits, you know, he looks very weary, very tired of it all. And yeah, Billy, he looks to be in a lot of pain and he's taken a beating. We can sort of see by his face in this close-up. And yeah, he deserves some comeuppance, he did. The people whose lives, you know, his actions made hell over recent days did. But despite this kind of shift, it's still not easy, you know, to see Billy kind of going through all this. And yeah, Silver, I think, is struggling with it as well. I don't know if he thinks this approach here is going to work. Does he really think he's going to have another kind of Dobbs situation with Billy? You know, that he'll take his punishment, but he'll want to be back in the fold and kind of under Silver's command. I think that's a bit naive of Silver if that's the case. I think it's been made very, very clear where Billy stands up to this point. But he makes his play. You know, he says, you made a terrible mistake and you paid a terrible price. But we're at war and you're an asset. Despite what's gone on, he's his friend. And as for their men and their change of heart, Silver says, I could walk out there and tell them the sky is red and they'd believe me. That's the power you've given me. Which is exactly why, you know, known to us, this same approach, it won't work with Billy. Billy made this king, and he is one of the few privy to the fact that John doesn't really want it, you know, and that he's been faltering a little bit with it, you know, recently. So yeah, Silver says, I have to know your vendetta with Flint is over. He never wants to be put to that choice again. Yeah, again, you know, this is John Silver trying to pose as Long John Silver. But Billy, yeah, he's not having any of it. It's clear for all to see except Silver, it seems. Billy's too far gone. Not unsimilar to kind of Woodes Rogers in recent times. And Billy will sadly make Woodes Rogers type choices in our remaining episodes. And Silver says, swear it, and it all ends. But yeah, Billy, he doesn't want any of it. Like I say, he turns his head slowly and says, you chose, live with it. Of course, coming back to my title. And yeah, this is a fair reaction from Billy, I think. Obviously, yeah, I hate how dark he is going to get with his revenge on this betrayal, you know, from his men and from Silver. But yeah, it's a lot for Silver to be expecting here. A lot for him to think that will go his way. I get he still wants his brother, struggling with that duality. And he goes in really hoping he can get him back. Offers Billy a back in. But yeah, knowing Silver's struggling morally with this one, Billy just gives him the middle finger pretty much. And yeah, here lies our Billy Bones. Whatever was left of the one we knew, I think it got beaten out of him in that barn. And yeah, Ben Gunn comes in to inform Silver that Julius' crew is here to talk. So Rufus talked them round to a meeting. And yeah, so leader and leader come face to face. So yeah, they have their meeting and Silver sat in a very regal looking chair. I don't believe it's that fucking chair, but it's a similar sentiment, isn't it? So yeah, he's making his kind of we're all after the same thing here speech to Julius to free the new world. And yeah, Julius wearily says we're to be your partners for how long? Yeah, Julius is aware of the situation with Billy. You turned on an ally, what's to stop you from turning on us, sort of thing he's asking. Amongst pirates, loyalty changes quickly, it seems. Yeah, very observant and very true. Of course, Jack, this episode alone, is dipping out at Mac's advice, you know, on their own sort of side quest. And yeah, Julius says, if a man can be replaced so easily, how can I know his promises won't be too? And yeah, Julius, he's asking strong, important questions from a strong leader. Again, Silver just looking a little bit out of his element here for me, because he just hasn't got the passion for this thing Flint has. You know, he hasn't got those quick, kind of reassuring, inspiring answers that we know Flint would have. And yeah, I like Julius. You know, as I say, he's asking the right questions. He can see things aren't tight-knit and running smoothly with Team Pirate right now. So he is in his mind to challenge it. But at this point, the Spanish are beginning their attack. So yeah, Dooley must be the bringer of bad news, cutting this meeting to a close. Dooley updates Silver on the immediate danger. We need to book it, basically, is what he says. You know, the walrus is close by. Let's get out of here. that sort of thing. But of course, with both Flint and Madi nowhere to be seen, Silver is panicking and he doesn't want to retreat and leave them behind. And so Silver approaches Julius and says, if we fight them together, there's a good chance we all leave alive, if we can hold them off. So he asks him to bring his men here and to make this the last battle to win the island. A good choice of words at this time in the moment, but whether he believes this would really be the last battle is another matter. Probably not. But yeah, Julius gives no answer but walks off, so it's unclear what he's going to decide in the first watch. So yeah, after a few other scenes, Ben Gunn comes fleeing back to camp. 80 or 100 men are heading this way, he informs Silver. And yeah, a little bit of tactical talk with Silver and Dooley. And I like that Ruth's kind of in the background. She's busy. She's getting some things sorted too. But yeah, Ben Gunn, he's about to make a bit of a shocker. A bit of a shocker. Understandable, and like Jacob Garrett, fair, considering that they both joined Billy very early on in his mission to originally save Vane, and they've been with him since. This loyalty will save Ben Gunn's life ultimately. So yeah, he unties Billy. So he's given him the chance to flee. He wishes him good luck and he leaves to get back to it. And yeah, most people, I think, after everything, would take their luck in this moment and peg it. Excuse the Long John Silver pun. But yeah, not Billy. Flint is not the only man on Nassau he has a target for anymore. You know, he's just pissed. I mean, alternate take, to be fair to him, to give himself some benefit of the doubt, maybe he just goes to the HQ for supplies, because he's planning on dipping out, calling it a day. And on seeing Madi, as we know he does, he just takes the opportunity and it kind of just snowballs and becomes something he can never go back on. But more likely, I think, he estimates that that's where Flint is going to be if he's not here. But yeah, anyway, so that's Billy for a little while. So yeah, the gunfire at the gate begins and it looks like they're secure, but Silver is distracted. He can hear something, and on asking him, you know, Dooley reveals there's only 4 men watching the fields. And yeah, Silver's face drops. And we just hear an oncoming kind of stampede sort of coming in from all sides. And so yeah, men just come charging through the grass. And yeah, Silver takes a somewhat not entirely confident shot. And he's pretty lucky not to be taken down by approaching Ryder. And yeah, the odds are really not looking in their favour. And Silver does look like he's breaking a little bit in this moment. Panic really settling in. He's not worried about himself right now. He's obviously worried about Madi. And it's kind of Hans that has to take command and call it. And he orders the retreat. And inside the kind of battlement, I guess I'll call it, Silver and everyone are trying to fight off this mass of Spanish soldiers with little wiggle room, really. And yeah, the odds are really not looking good for our guys. The Spanish are getting closer. But enter Julius and his band of brothers right at this moment. You know, right at the moment they need them the most to bail them out. He took his time, but yeah, he's come back just in time. And yeah, with a fairer fight now. And yeah, Silver orders the doors open so everyone can fight, and the odds are evened, and the Spanish retreat. As usual, I've kind of breezed through these action scenes a little bit, but you know, they're shot fantastically. It's tense, it's chaotic, really capturing the intensity of the moment. So yeah, next time we see them, Silver and the crew are kind of on clear up, and Flint has returned. This is after Eleanor and Madi, obviously. And yeah, Silver can tell pretty quickly something's up by Flint's very bad poker face. Yeah, Flint, obviously, he knows Silver isn't going to take this well. It's obviously, yeah, it's interesting with Flint here. Is he scared of Silver's reaction a little bit? I mean, he's obviously worried in terms of Silver's commitment going forward, what madness his grief might unlock. But is he also worried for retributions he might face if Silver blames him? Obviously, we'll come back to that in a moment. And yeah, Silver asks, where's Madi? You know, and Flint's face is answer enough for him. He doesn't need to say it right now. Dooley comes to inform them that they're ready for the next wave, but Flint points out there will be 3 times as many heading their way. Dooley tries to argue a bit more. They can handle it, but Silver says quietly, it's over. He's not just talking about right here and now, I don't think. And yeah, Flint orders Dooley and everyone to get to the beach. No man left behind. So yeah, this is an interesting sort of scene with Flint and Silver. One we know is a bit of a moot point because Maddie's not dead. Did anyone suspect she was first watch? I didn't. General rule, no body shown. character not dead. In this showcase, Billy Bones being a great example already used. But this dynamic between Silver and Flint, it's still interesting, makes for interesting discussion. So yeah, Silver, he's deep in mourning, he just looks haggard as hell. Of course, yeah, to him in this moment, it's confirmation his suspicions and niggles have been right recently. And yeah, Flint is interesting too. As I asked, is he a bit scared of Silver here? Not scared, wary, maybe better word. He of all people, knows what grief can do to a person, what it can turn them into in a moment. So yeah, I think he has general concern for his friend overall. And yeah, but maybe he is feeling a bit guilty. He knows he is the ringleader of all this. Everyone's made their own choice at the end of the day, but he has made it quite hard for people to choose otherwise sometimes. He'll be aware of that. And obviously Jack and the sloop have kind of separated at this point, as discussed. So they sort of bring that up here as well. Maybe that's another, dip out. Maybe that's what I should have done, kind of fought for Silver here as well. And yeah, Flint says he's sorry. He's sorry for his loss. But again, is there more to this sorry? Silver's face doesn't look happy when Flint says this. But Flint comes, sits behind him, and he tries to find the words to soothe him. He says he needs him to know he did all he could to keep her safe, but he doesn't expect that to mean anything. He did, and he was watching out for both of them. And again, I think Silver will know that, and he'll know he didn't just leave Madi to die. So he sort of says, Silver, he says, it wasn't your fault. It's just about reassuring, but at the same time, has he taken, Flint's apology as more than just a sorry for your loss? Is he taking it as a sorry for my failings as well, sort of from Flint? Again, whether Flint did mean that as well, I'm not too sure. And yeah, when he repeats it again, it wasn't your fault. I think Flint knows there's no more conversation to be had right now in this moment, and it's probably best to just leave it. But yeah, so right now, he just kind of puts a reassuring hand on his shoulder for a few seconds before he leaves, and he heads out, and he gives Silver his space. So yeah, that's a really interesting scene, that one. And yeah, and so to close, a sort of teaser of what's to come next, we come back to Maroon Island for the first time properly this season. And yes, someone else must now hear the bad news. Madi's mother, the Queen. Of course, she was against this from the beginning. It took Madi and Flint, to convince her. And yeah, a lot hangs in the balance for Flint on her reaction, which we actually don't see. Because, yeah, she has news of her own. And, yeah, we see on the guys' approach to the camp, there's a lot more people about now. More Maroons, sort of pirates. And, yeah, so we learn the cash is still here. I thought it might be. Its whereabouts did kind of confuse me last episode. So that actually means Eleanor would have struggled to get her side of the deal, she made regardless. It would have been another hurdle for her as well. More fight she would have had to do. Another kind of letdown, though it would have been Flint's fault. Would have been another letdown for her. So yeah, more people have been heard what's going down, and they've come here. Colonies, other Maroons with similar setups, pirates from all over. They heard Nassau has fallen and they have come to join. The revolution you promised has begun. And yeah, we cut to Silver's face, and of course, he is well over this now. As far as he's concerned, this so-called revolution, it's killed his partner. And of course, once she's confirmed alive to him in a couple of episodes, he can't bear to face this wave of grief again, of which he's sure he will have to if he continues. So yeah, when Flint and Silver both look to each other at the end, it's not the fuck yeah, moment it would have been at the season start on seeing this massive band of people on their side. And while Silver won't care at this current moment, and he'll probably welcome the kind of chaos and war to help with his grief, and will sort of be fueled with it like Flint was after kind of Thomas Miranda, we know, like I say, he will change his mind pretty soon when Madi is confirmed alive. So yeah, to close this section out, I'm going to give my fourth final MVP nomination of the episode to Flint, I think. Mostly for that really kind reassurance to Eleanor in her dying moments. But he took proper good Flint control of the danger and situation well. And yeah, had they not handled those 3 runaway Spaniards, everyone might have likely died anyway, including himself. It really was one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't moments where he was never going to probably be able to save Eleanor. But yeah, that was a really long one, I know. This is going to be an absolute nightmare to try and whittle down as best as I can. Yeah, brilliant episode. So with last thing left, let's get that MVP sorted.
Last item.
So yeah, after pretty weak kind of MVP shouts last episode, some really strong ones this episode. So we have Jack, Flint, Eleanor or Max. Jack and Flint stuff was great, but I think this is a 2-horse race and it's a really tough one between Eleanor and Max. Yeah, this is a brilliant Max episode. She's brave, smart, firm, doesn't well in her despair for long, and any other episode, and I think she's nabbing that. But I've got to give it to Eleanor. Despite her doubts and despite my frustrations with it, you know, she's defending her husband that really does not deserve, you know, defending. And in the most horrifying, terrifying situation, massively against the odds, she doesn't stop fighting. She fires a pistol, she swings a sword. She deserved to get off that 1 count. So yeah, Eleanor's final count will be 2 MVP wins. But yeah, brilliant, you know, brilliant character. Really enjoyed deep diving Eleanor this run through. Really enjoyed that, taking much more time with her than I have done in watches previous. And yeah, it really has helped me see just a whole new side to her that I didn't explore quite so deeply before. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, that's the end of it. My brain's gone. So yeah, I've got to end this. Yeah, thank you so much for watching, everyone. I will see you very soon for episode 7. Alright, thank you for watching. Take care. See you on the flip side. Peace.